Hello and welcome to this week's edition of The Mediator with me, your host Brian West, here to give you your top 8 headlines and developing news stories that made it throughout the week. These top 8 stories are only documented for records and to highlight topics for those in the business of talk radio, talk media, and those who just want to stay informed. Now let's get to the top 8 stories that made it into The Mediator this week. Story number 1, ladies and gents. Who gets credit for an improving economy? Now, with midterms around the corner, you may notice each party loading up their debate sheet with talking points that will impress voters, but do we credit Obama or Trump for a slight increase in economic activity? Let's note that in 2010, President Obama signed the Dodd-Frank Wall Street Reform and Consumer Protection Act, and now that we're 8 years down the road with a majority Republican House and midterms lurking in the wind, you may notice more fact-checking on whether Trump-era tax cuts and trade war talk is the reason for a better economy. So somebody is responsible for an increase in economic activity. And if it wasn't the Dodd-Frank Act, then could it be Trump's tax cuts and his talk on trade? Either way, there will be discussions to see who gets the credit for an improving economy and economic conditions. This developing story may play a big part in the battle for the majority rule in Washington in upcoming elections. Story number 2, what investors will be watching for in the upcoming weeks. If you did not know, headlines about growth in the economy play a big role in investor confidence. That means investors don't like to waste money. And if you don't know how the investment game is played, take these notes. Wage growth and the next jobs report released will play a key role in how investors channel their money. Now, it's important to also note that the unemployment rate stayed at 4.1%. That's the lowest it's been in 17 years. So why is this developing story important? It's important because where investors usually see gain and growth and potential in the market, that's usually where they channel their money. And there's a big chance that that money may end up in your pocket as a paycheck. Because if there is no investment activity and no confidence in the market, usually investors sit back on their money, and that's how the game is played in the investment market. People want to see growth and they want to see returns on their investment. Story number 3, does Bernie Sanders have a point? A story released about some conflict going on at the Israeli-Gaza border between them and some Palestinians. And I guess it took notice that tens of thousands of people were protesting, and all of a sudden some demonstrators were killed. The question is, should the United States or any other country get involved in the conflict? Well, Bernie Sanders feels that the United States should, and it is no secret about small situations like these elevating into bigger conflicts, especially in the Middle East. So if this developing story gets bigger, then we may have more issues in the Middle East to worry about. Usually when life is lost, diplomats and mediators are usually called to come to the aid to de-escalate the violence. Let's note that 17 Palestinians have been killed and more than 1,400 have been injured in the clash at the Israeli-Gaza border. This headline is not new to the media because it's been in and out of the news in numerous occasions over the years, because I guess they've been battling over the Gaza Strip, and this story has been in the news in the past, and I guess it's back in the news now. But people like Bernie Sanders are concerned because of the people that were injured in the conflict and the people that were killed. Story number 4. Is the world forgetting about pollution? In countries like Lebanon and all across the world where there is mass consumption and mass commerce, there is always some form of pollution. Pollution is the result of black lung, respiratory infections, contaminated water, and even birth defects. So why lose track of it now? Now, due to an increase in carelessness in regards to basic human responsibilities, we may see the issue of pollution creeping back into the news. It's already been in some stories in the past weeks. Pollution plays a big part in why the EPA or Environmental Protection Agency does the things that it does, but some countries do not have an EPA, and some countries have mass amounts of corruption that really do not center their attention around pollution. Story number 5, cracking down on CO2 emissions. Brazil, Saudi Arabia, India, Panama, and Argentina are just some countries resisting the crackdown on CO2 by shipping organizations. Studies show that international shipping emits tons of CO2 into the atmosphere annually. Now, what countries are afraid of is the effect that the crackdown will have on the global trade arena. Nobody wants to lose money. An increase in CO2 levels is not only hazardous to the ecosystem, it also contributes to global warming. Greenhouse gases cause global warming by absorbing energy that usually escapes into space, acting as an insulator between the Earth's atmosphere and space. So basically, it's like a blanket over the Earth, causing the Earth to warm up, if it makes sense. Story number 6, figuring out Russia. There was a new article that emerged talking about the new age of Russia and also analyzing the history. And they're talking about the present day in relations to the West and other parts of the world. They are trying to position Russia as not trying to revive a Cold War, but basically just trying to maintain stability within their own country. The article also talks about how Russia was able to restructure its economy by utilizing its own resources, while also elaborating on the country's intervention in Ukraine and Syria. Although the country has made headlines in the cyber warfare arena, it seems that analysts are more concerned about where the country stands when dealing and interacting with not only the West but other nations. Now, unless we see more attention geared towards Russia's present positions and interactions in places like Syria and Ukraine, then there is really no real understanding in the intentions posed by the country's leader, other than just trying to stay in the game or just trying to stay afloat. But the reality in the new world is that every leader is just trying to do that. They're trying to keep up with everybody else. And some leaders are just gathering ground by attempting to be assertive. That means they're trying to use force. A good example of that would be North Korea. I guess that's what the purpose of the article was for, was to shine light on how Russia is trying to maintain its own country and not trying to cause trouble. But only time will tell if the writer of the article or the analyst is correct. Story number 7, and the final 2 stories that made it into the Mediator this week. Who really runs the media? If you were not aware, some countries' government control the media. But in the United States, there seems to be a media war going on when it comes to who's in control or who enforces what's said in the media. Most people would only assume that it's the producers. But nowadays, there's more finger pointing going on than usual. But no one really can name one central source to blame for media activity or for false stories that are portrayed not only just in the news but all over the web. It may sound like a conspiracy, but there's a real big battle going on to regain attention on what people are watching. Some people believe that new age content has gone so far to the left that it's softening up the next generation. In the United States, this story has been in the news since the election of Donald J. Trump and may gain more ground while more attention centers around who is aware and who is not. Big story. Story number 8, and the final story that made it into the Mediator this week. The police, the public, especially the black public. On several occasions, we've seen headlines about the police and their relationship with the public. Now, whether it's speed cameras or someone getting shot, a rapidly developing story in Sacramento, California has put the police back on the radar. And not only the police, but the justice system in general. This is after an African American male was shot not only in the back, but on his grandmother's property. Now, although people often pull the race card due to past events, the reality is that the mixture between the police and the public is turning into like oil and water, because sometimes they just don't mix well. This relates to other ethnic groups as well. The police and the public, not just the black public, but the police and the public in general. On several occasions, there have been numerous reports of officers fighting and killing or being killed in some form to uphold the law or to force the matter at hand by using force. But now that we have technology to observe altercations, there may be more pages being added to the Justice Handbook. Or we may just see a mass civil movement to change a culture and perception when it comes to the police and the public, because stories centered around this problem keep emerging in the news. We have had a big problem throughout the years with police making headlines and the public becoming irate and rioting, and it's become a very, very mass problem in predominantly African American communities. So I don't see this story leaving the news anytime soon. Well, I want to thank you for tuning into the media this week, and please don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you want to show us some support, you can go to our website, www.method8inc.com. By buying something, click on something, watching something, or just reading something. Thank you for tuning into the media this week with me, Brian West. Have a good week, everybody.
Have no fear, fellow citizens.